welcome you to track 4 here at the Data Days, and track 4 means application and society. Before we start with the discussion and with all the panelists, I'm just backing, we start with Martin Vesper. He will hold the keynote. He's the CEO of digitalSTROM, literally translate digital electricity. And this is a company which aims to make your home smarter. Means it provides the technology to connect your lamps, your window, your front door, your coffee machine in an intelligent way and in an energy efficient way together. So probably, therefore, he's the one who definitely can tell us what will the homes of the future be capable of. So Martin, please get started.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot for having the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we believe. And the next 7 minutes we'll talk about what beliefs that the smart homes in the future will be capable of, and what it has to do with the question of big data, smart data, or whatever you want to call it. First of all, what I would like to start with is what is really a smart home, because there are so many buzzwords around it that I want to give a brief definition how we see a smart home and what a real smart home is. And there are 6 points which we say is a prerequisite that you can call it something a real smart home. Number 1, everything is connected, meaning can communicate in one way or the other. That's important because we want to get away from that your applications are wired, like you have it today. You have a push button or a button somewhere, you switch on the light and it's wired in that way. We want to make it communicating, sending data back and forth, so that's important. The second is every device should be a kind of smart, should have its own intelligence. We're talking about Internet of Things and those things, and if they're too stupid, that doesn't work, especially in a home, because customer cannot configure that much. They wouldn't take the time for that. You configure your smartphone, that's okay, because you have only one. If you have 150 or 200 communicating devices in a home, you don't want to configure them. Just too much time, so they have to be kind of smart. The third part is very, very important, and that's what we will talk later about. Application is split from function. Today, that's always connected. The worst case in a home today is the application somebody wants to visit you, called doorbell. For that, you even have an own power grid. You have a low voltage power grid just for this application because somebody wants to tell, I'm in front of the door, please open it. And the rest is high voltage, 230 volts. We changed that and said, no, that has to be split. This push button can be used for anything, also for the application somebody wants to visit you. But inside, the doorbell can be at the same time used for a fire alarm, or you can have the application that lights are flashing when somebody wants to visit you because maybe you are wearing headphones, or people who do not hear correctly anymore, or things like that. So that's a very important requirement. The fourth thing is that in a smart home, a customer must be able to add application himself, because he doesn't want to go through all the processes of getting an expert in to have a new feature in there. So if we want to talk about smart homes, it's important that he can add new application, new ways himself. The fifth point is that we have an open API and a connectivity to the web that has to do with a repurchase cycle. How most people buy once in their lifetime, maybe 2. White goods, 10, 15 years. A car every 5 years. Smartphone every 2 years. Applications, whenever you want. In order that these things can work together and that you do not have, when the new smartphone comes out, you have to buy everything new in your home, there has to be connectivity to the cloud, because there you can have extra computing power and all these things without updating your home every time when there are new applications available. And that's very important, because in this spectrum, the home is the slowest one where you buy new equipment. As I said, fridge and all those things, we are talking about 10 years, lights even longer. And the last one is a more technical one. You can add tags to every device because you do not know all applications today. There might be future applications which need additional information about a product. You're not giving all information into the system as a first application. If there's something coming up in the future, you can add these information to devices, and therefore you're again future-proof regarding this renewable cycle. So that's a smart home. How we do it with this small terminal block you put between a device and a light. It's a small computer. It can switch, dim, and measure electricity. It can store data, and it communicates over the wire. So with that, what she said already, we connect all your devices in the home. Only the ones which are already connected, like a TV or an audio system or whatever has already broadband connection, we don't have to connect. So we use that for lights, shades, push buttons, or whatever in order to that. So with that, we have really a smart home under the definition we saw on the first page. And we can do it as a retrofit, means it is also in existing homes, because that's important to have a really relevance in the world. That you can use it on existing homes, because some countries have 0.5% building new homes. Switzerland is very high with 6%, but you don't get much higher than that. So it would take far too long if you only can do it on new homes. So having that, what can you now do with a smart home? I mean, first things, and which is very important, what you do today with a home you still can do. So you can just switch on lights, and whatever you need to do in a home you can do. You might extend this as you now can use your smartphone in order to do that as well. First of all, that you can do it remotely. Secondly, that you can do it more in a smart way. To give you an example, right now if you have a kettle, you might be able to select the temperature depending on what type of tea you want. So you have something like 65, 70, 85 degrees Celsius or whatever, centigrade or whatever you want. Now with a smartphone, you just say what type of tea you want, and the system will be smart enough to select the right temperature. So with a smartphone, it's not only remote control, it's also getting smarter, that you can do these type of things. So that's the beginning, what we have. But then with more information and new application coming up, what you really want is home automation. Now, home automation, we have some type of automation already today, time-based things. Maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, shades go up. Maybe sunset, they go down, or something like that. But what you really want in automation is that the system is predicting your next step in the house. That it knows what you will do next, the room you will go next. With additional sensor information, most times we use motion detectors for that today, but really that's what you like, that you don't have to take care of what's happening in the house, that the house is doing it itself in the best possible, most energy efficient way you could think of. So the prediction of the next step is what actually home automation is about, that you can say what is probably, and with probably I mean 99%, even higher percentage, right? What will be the next thing the customer would like to do, because today a 3 to 4 person household has somewhere between 250 and 350 manual switching interaction per day in a house. That's what you do, and that's how often you press it. Because it's so convenient, you really don't feel it in the evening. It's not like, oh, my arm, I had to do that often, but you do it actually. For a 4-person household, 250 to 350 times a day. The next thing you're expecting is detecting the unusual. Alarm systems. You want somebody breaking in. The problem of alarm systems today, 95% false alarm. You know, that's the reason why a lot of people who do not have really, really, really big values in their home or don't have an alarm system because of the high failure rate. You want to detect the unusual, but more precise than 5% I'm right, 95% I'm wrong. So that's the next thing. So taking all sensor information in a home in order to make very, very fast the right decision. Is this a real alarm, burglar alarm, fire alarm, or whatever it is, or is it not? The next thing where we need it for is, and the smart house should be able to capable of, is we are connecting it to the web. So there is some thoughts about maybe hackers coming in. Maybe you want to detect this as well, fraud detection. We know it from a credit card. Fraud detection, you're doing something very unusual, certain alarm bells go on, and it will be monitored closely and maybe rejected or whatever, something. We need that in a smart home as well. So detecting the unusual is the next thing beside the next step you want to have. Third piece you can do with a smart home is, since the products can communicate with them, with everything, you can get the perfection in the products. Because right now, those who build consumer products and put them in a house, they don't get the feedback. You hardly bring them to a shop like a car. You cannot have what you had today on a lot of software that if there's a problem, it will report it if the customer agrees. Now this will be available for every product in a smart home. So the perfection of the product, the quality of the products will increase through smart homes because there's a better feedback on what's happening with the products, a mechanical problem or whatever problem a system might have. So quality of products will improve through smart home. And the fourth point where you need big data is helping with the unlimited choice. And that's when you have so many devices and you can be so flexible. It's the question, how do you make the choice, what is the right setting? That might sound a little unusual, but we know already today if you are a customer and have a heat pump has already 20 parameters you can set. 80% of the heat pumps are still on factory setting. They are not adjusted neither to your home, nor the location where your home is, or your personal preferences or behavior, because too complex. Now, if you have 20 parameters, and I don't know how many settings per parameters, that might be already a million choices you have. You need data from other sources in order to set up your heat pump in a very energy efficient way. And that's because engineers do a great job to set these parameters and say, I get the best heat pump on the world. The problem is if you not adjust it to the situation you have, you will not get it. And that's the fourth P, what we have, because we have all the flexibility and we want to have it very personal to our house, and a house is not standard, it's not like cars. A house is very, very individual. There are nearly any two homes which are really the same. So you need some support in order to get the right choices for you, because it would be far too complex to do it yourself, and it's also too complex for the expert. And that's the reason why 80% of the heat pumps are still on factory setting. And there we are not even talking about the most complex system. It's just one system where you would have a great benefit. I mean, it's not that the customers don't want it, because setting the heat pump to the right parameters will give you additional energy savings, 10, 15% very easily. But still it's not done because too complex, and that's what you can do with big data as well. So when we talk about the next step, maybe some more information, I just want to go to that point, is for the next steps, the last 30 minutes are the important stuff. What happened 3 weeks ago, 3 years ago, doesn't really matter. So when we look at it, we might use it for analysis, but really predicting the next step, what happens the last 30 minutes, what happens the last seconds, where are you moving along, and what will be the next? Will you go into this room or this room? That's a prediction you want to do. And it is only useful if the error rate is below 1%. Or below 0.1%. Because with this many choices per day, you would be annoyed if you have too many wrong decisions by the system saying, I'm going in a room and suddenly it's still dark or something like that. You need interaction with a person for that. It's not like happening silently. You have to communicate to the customer living in the home, otherwise he gets afraid. I mean, something happens suddenly and you have no clue why it happened. You know, timed events, still fine. You can remember that, oh yeah, I said 6 o'clock, the shades could go down. They go up or down for some other reason. You should be able to communicate whatever you use, voice or whatever it is, doesn't really matter. It's very personal. A lot of things in the home are not personal, they are just for the house, but a lot of things like the water you want, the shower you take or whatever is more personal. Other things like switching light and on and off is because everybody is in the room, not personal, but a lot is personal, you have to be there. And even though it's very individual, context plays a role. Context in the house, but general context, we know that if there is a soccer game and there's a break, everybody goes to the toilet. The water companies know this, the energy companies know this, and smart homes have to know that as well because it's a very unusual situation and it has to understand this context, otherwise the prediction up there will be the wrong one, because normally maybe you do not go that often to the toilet. So the conclusion is, a smart home needs context in order to be really helpful. It has to understand where you are, it has to understand what type of house it is, and it has to gather all this information, whether it's in order to optimize, what I said, heat pumps, or to do the next step. It's very, very important. And big data will actually deliver this context, because to manually configure all what we think of might be possible in a smart home, once you have everything connected, we are talking about, let's say, 150 devices, and you have per device 20 choices. That are trillions of choices you would have, is not really doable. So if we want to give the customers this flexibility to be very efficient, either energy side, comfort, whatever you're looking at, whatever application you have, you need this context, and big data will deliver it in order to start it in the first place. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Martin, for the insights you gave us with your keynote. Now, of course, there are two more persons here on the panel I would like to introduce. To my left, Noelle CEO, yes, and to my right, it's Alexander Oelling. And while I was lying, I don't want to introduce them, because I would kindly ask you to introduce yourself and to tell us a bit what you're up to and what's your special perspective to the topic of our track.
Sure. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Noelle CEO. I'm a principal data scientist for a company called Pivotal. If you haven't heard of Pivotal, it's a spin-out from EMC and VMware, and with backing from GE, to a startup that combines a lot of the things that would actually help smart homes in terms of making that a reality. So when it comes to big data, to analytics and applications, what Pivotal does is specialize in the software that powers all of those things. Specifically, as a data scientist, big data in and of itself is not powerful unless you do something with it, unless you analyze it. And there's been, as you know, growing field of data science in the past several years, actually. And so my perspective coming from this is, my background is in digital media, actually, and so where a lot of the innovation happened when you think of the internet companies and how they had to take all of this data that was coming in so fast and how to do something with it, how to monetize that. And we're seeing the innovation and that drastic change happen across multiple industries. And so my specific perspective today, we'll see how that's related to smart homes.
Smart homes and or smart cities as
and
well.
Smart cities, yeah, that'll be tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. You, Alexander?
Yeah, my name is Alexander Oelling. I'm the CEO and founder of Sensorberg. We are in front of the competition in that kind of iBeacon space. And what is an iBeacon? iBeacon is a small Bluetooth transmitter that connects to your phone and to other devices. And it literally helps you to get in touch, or lets your smartphone see what's around you and your smartphone in the moment you are in a room or in front of a newspaper or a billboard, for example. And we ship that technology to financial institutes on the one hand, to events, but also to football stadiums, train stations, everywhere. So it's something, if you imagine that, the big idea behind of that is a lot of young people know basically concepts from video games where you walk through a game and pick up items, and you get a notification if you pick up that item. And in the real world, with smartwatches and Google Glass and whatever, and your smartphone basically, you can now have the same experience. This can be coupon codes, it's one thing, but it can be also something like indoor navigation that helps you to get to your track at the train station, for example. There are tons of use cases around that. Basically, it gives you an app that you're actually using a context, and the context of the situation where the app is actually in. Imagine if you are in a movie theater and you're watching this new cool video, and your smartphone knows in which room you are, in which theater, and which movie is playing, and can give you context or additional information in terms of an app in front of you.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think we all got now insights from all of the panelists. And before we start with the hard stuff, I think we know each other now for a really long time, and so I dare to ask you a personal question. Would you like your special home that connected? Of course, Martin, I know your answer will be just yes. Even if dark parts of your soul would say no, you wouldn't say no right now, isn't it? No, you would say yes, of course.
I would say I have it. That's the nice thing about it. And I'm happy to have it there because, you know, in scenarios where I get older, I know I can add applications, whatever I need, changing my lifestyle. When the kids will leave home in a couple of years, I can adapt to that. So yes, I would like to have it connected because it gives me these benefits.
I have to admit, before I ask you, my husband would love it because I always turn on the lights and always forget to turn them off. Yes. Noelle, what about you?
Oh, absolutely. And I also would like to add that as soon as it comes smart home, that I would like to get the data back from it, as soon as I can make sure that it's all collected and collected
You're
myself.
the data scientist,
and
definitely.
then I know it's kind of what to do. So even here, right? Like not only are we connected ourselves, the people are connected, the devices are connected, but what good is it if you can't, you know, take a look at the data yourself and do something with it? So optimize my home myself.
Okay. And you?
So let's begin with a story. So I woke up this morning via an app, and this app monitors my sleep and adjusts my Philips Hue intelligent lighting system with the best color to wake up in the morning. So I woke up at 5:30, really early today. So it's all like I go to the bathroom and there's already light in my lovely colors. So and it helps really to get on in the morning. So but sure, have around 20 or 30 lights from Philips around the corner. So and I love to do that, but we need more standardization in that, so that's easier to connect all these devices.
I also want to point out that there's always people. We sound really excited about all these innovations and the smart homes are smart. And there's always a line between it being really cool and really creepy. Like some people tend to think, but it's not. It's not.
Well, that's my part to say it's creepy. No,
no,
just kidding. Okay. Yes, I see. I'm the one here who's quite old, I guess. So because I'm excited too about all these things. But well, let's go on. But first, I would like to come back to you and your iBacon.
Yeah.
You said iBacon is the next big mobile wave.
Yeah.
And so I also saw a speech of you where you explained how it works, that I can use it. Yeah, I'll know this. You're standing on the platform waiting for the train, and you get a reserved seat. And of course, you think you have to stand here, the train comes in, and your seat is over there. So and as far as I understood you, if I used the iBacon technology together with an app, then the app could tell me, oh, no, just go, I don't know, 200 meters to the left, and then you will stand right in front of your seat. I think that's great, and I can imagine that. But I don't know, as far as I understood you, it's as well, if I go through the train station and I'm connected, that it's possible to get all the ads. Personal ads are fine, but I don't really know how the acceptance of normal people would be to get one ad after the other. Here, get the coffee a bit cheaper. Here, get this new hat 20% off on their phone. And what would you answer them if they would ask you, I'm not sure if I would need that or if I want to have that? What would you answer them?
I would say it's a catalog of things, what you should do. First of all, offer extended app use cases. So if you're at a white piece of paper, you can define how a technology should look like in the future. You know, you tie relationships to advertising companies, to train station and so on. And what you can define is, I say, you have to connect a notification or an information to an app. Offer an extended app use case. And this leads to that you need the right app to get the information from the beacon you're approaching. So, for example, if you're entering the train station and there is a billboard of Coca-Cola, you still need the Coca-Cola app to get this notification and the information behind of that. And in the future, this will be much more fine granular than it is today. So, but what we see is that, for example, one of our customers is Sparkasse, and so they have an app, and they're offering extended services. It's not advertising. It's you're entering the branch, and you get a notification that you can give your accountant a sign that he will grab you up in the foyer. So this is something that you don't have to wait in the line to get to your accountant, and that helps you to cut off waiting time. But there's tons of use cases around that. So, but we see on the one hand advertising use cases, and they will work, sure. But on the other hand, I see more than double the size service use cases that are specific to specific apps. And the interesting point on that is imagine a world where you have apps that have context to that where they are actually. That even helps home automation. I mean, let's visit a friend, you know, and let's say you want to control the sound system, and there's a beacon somewhere in their home, and this beacon holds every information, which apps you can use if I'm visiting your home, for example, or your apartment. So a beacon can hold not only advertising information or videos or coupon codes, it can also hold information about apps that are serving a service at a specific location. So there are lots of use cases around that.
Okay, and then I see. I'm just asking. I see the point I see that it is useful down the service lines, and I see that the Sparkasse, of course, is paying for that service. Yeah. And I see, of course, if someone wants to do advertising, they're paying for that, of course, as well. But all the other service lines you just told us about, like regulating the sound of another house, for example. How should that work?
So manufacturers also approaching us. So on the one hand, we have advertisers. On one hand, we have this service solutions. And the third thing is hardware. And there are a couple of hardware manufacturers, and they want to integrate that. There are some car manufacturers as well, so because cars and apps also belong together. And an iBeacon is no mystical thing. It's only for you a link that you hook up, that hooks up you, and it activates your app that is existing installed. It's nothing that works magically or...
Maybe I can give you an example. For example, if you have a wheelchair and you're in a home, it's important that when you want to control things in the room, that you know in which room you are, because you might be not that easily touching the touch panel or whatever you want to use. And therefore, just location in the house is one application we use, for example, iBeacon for. So it can be these type of things. But with the advertisement, to be honest, civilization was a couple of years defined as if you see a Coca-Cola sign. On average, I think a German person sees 50 times a day a Coca-Cola signs. So we see it anyhow, something type of advertisement. The question is it more targeted to me or not? It's not whether I see advertisement or not.
Let's move into an example with that. So there is a video game released on Xbox called Destiny, and there's a real thing connected to them. So look into the younger targeted audience. You know, they walk through a billboard, see that advertising there, and can download a mini game to their phone. Normally they will use a QR code to somewhere get the URL or something. Now they have an Xbox app installed. They get that in the same moment they are approaching, and if they are leaving this thing in the near future, this notification will disappear. So there's a lot of concepts around that are not public at the moment that we are releasing piece by piece. So
that sounds exciting, yes, but still I would like to have your opinion as well. And then I think coming back to the normal advertising, of course I see all the advertisings around me, and of course I still watch TV. If I watch TV, the normal TV, not Netflix or something like that, I see advertorials, and I need to consume them, and I'm annoyed. So, and a lot of other people are annoyed, and I'm just asking, because here with application and science, the normal society out there, not among our filter bubble in here, which we still are, how do you think, will they accept that? Will they accept an idea of, or why should they be customer of a Coca-Cola app, of an Edeka app, of an, I don't know, you know? Why do you want to have 400 apps of your favorite trademarks or whatsoever on your phone, collecting kind of data anyway, just to get, you know, 20% off? What do you think? Will there be, you can later on, will there be an acceptance? What do you think?
Yeah, so you're right that a lot of people, there's hesitation around whether or not they want to give data away, or do they want to do this, but I think it's, when it comes to the internet, first of all, the internet's free for a reason, right? It's the advertisements that power the internet, and so it's a normal part of the experience, quite frankly, to have advertisements everywhere. So for that, I think where it starts getting to, where people might start feeling that it's a little invasive is perhaps when it is starting to pop up. It's kind of not an ordinary part of the experience. That all being said, people can opt out of those things if they want to. Right? And there's a lot of things that, you know, people have ad blocker on, and they have all of these different things. But ultimately, what the advertisers have to find is, what is that one nugget that will just tip them over the edge? Like, it doesn't matter if I get, you know, all of these things. That's what's enough, right? And so depending on who you are, depending on preferences, they really have to, there is a science to studying that, you know, people are motivated by $1 or €1. It doesn't matter, you get a free app and it's $1 or whatever it is. And that's, but it really depends on the person. And so the point that you were saying earlier about it has to be targeted. There's a lot of the data that we do have about people can really help determine those sorts of behaviors, but you can't win them all, so.
And I think the convenience is a very important thing. Convenience and other things. People take risks. I mean, we are a car country, right? We take the risk, we took in the 70s the risk of 20,000 deaths per year for mobility. Globally, we take 1 million deaths for mobility. So people are taking risks if they have a benefit. The benefit out of that is convenience, not, you know, processes get more efficient. Credit card is more efficient, especially when you travel. You don't have to have the different currencies and these type of things. You can, you know, you can book a taxi cab with my taxi app. Why are people using it? It's convenience. I don't have to, you know, wait for the bill or whatever. He just tells me you can use it. And I think that's the main driver of a lot of things we've seen in the internet spectrum was the convenience to do certain things made it really work, and people accept certain risks for that.
Look at this whole music industry. You know, it was more convenient to download an app, a song on Napster than going into a store. Then Apple shifted that and make it more convenient to download it from the App Store because it's safe. You don't do illegal stuff. So, and then Spotify changed it again because it's more convenient to not pay for music and pay only once for it every month. So. So this is a whole driver that we see the whole time, and home automation or iBeacon gives is an automatic. iBeacon is a channel, and home automation and the data behind of that is the data and the service that's offered, and this gets automatically to the user now in the moment you are, for example, here on stage.
And it is not. And the point is also that it makes it very relevant. Right? They know it's it becomes part of the experience. You see it, and suddenly you have something, and it's tangible, and it's convenient because it's immediate.
And one thing which is important, what we are seeing here is through the connectivity that these things can work, and with the tools we have with analytics, we really can target and make real convenience. Now, we have homes which are totally connected. We have technologies like that, but we also have the data analytics abilities to go and understand this context, and through that make it at reasonable cost available to every customer. And I think that is what's happening here right now. There are a couple of things happening around there which actually gives the customers the benefit that we now see it's coming and didn't see it 5 years ago, even though at that time certain things were already available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really expensive.
Okay, sorry. Fantastic. I don't even need to moderate the discussion. Because I think that would be quite boring, because you're quite boring, you know, because you're all very excited, of course, and I will go on with the annoying questions of being an advocatus diaboli, kind of, because, of course, it's convenience, and of course, it's great to have a smart home, to have smart cities with no traffic jams anymore, fantastic, yeah, and of course, it's, if I get advertisements, then, of course, I want them to be personalized. You already said it. Isn't it kind of creepy or scary as well to have all these data given away in a personal way, in a smart home, and then, more broad way, public way, if we think about all the traffic, and even if they are connected with all the single cars to make the city flow. So there are questions as well, I think so, like, what if systems become too powerful? Not even, okay, there's the possibility that they are hacked, of course, but you do everything you need to do that they can't be hacked. But still, what if systems become too powerful? What I mean is, to which point do you think shall algorithms predict and or control our lives? And I have to admit, that's not only a lawyer's opinion here right now. There's an expert on artificial intelligence named Yvonne Hofstetter. She just released a book called, called Sie wissen alles. They know everything. And she does not mean intelligence services. She means machines. So that's the questions. Or if you think, shall there be a kind of control? Do you think there might be a need for boundaries or even a kind of regulation authorities? So what's your opinion about that? You're looking so not like, oh my God, no.
Well, so to be fair, so when it comes to data science, right, the first thing that we want to do is when they say they have everything, like that's the first thing I want. Like I want to have all the data because you can do there's so many interesting things that you can do with data, and when you start putting, you know, data sets together that haven't been put together from like different parts of wherever organization you are, if it's about consumers, every part of their lives, and it just becomes really interesting to see what kind of behaviors and things you can predict. And while it starts again to get to the realm of like, do you really need, like, my band knows every time I wake up, and my phone will tell me the traffic on the way to work. And it's like, how did it know I was going to work? I didn't tell it where my office is, but it told me, like, this morning, this is how long it's going to take you to get to your office today. And you know, from a science perspective, like that's fantastic. But I can see like that's great. Mathematics is awesome. But from like a privacy perspective, from a personal perspective, I can see where the hesitation is. But there's two things I should say. One is there are lots of regulations about what data you can use anyway, and what you can. And I think there will never not be rules about what data can be gathered, what you're allowed to do with it, what you're allowed to put together, and just for obvious reasons, as you mentioned, for safety purposes. All right, and so, but anyhow, there's a lot. I think that the benefit will always outweigh that part.
So you think there's enough regulation, we don't need any more, and
I want
to analyze the data.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So I think with moving forward, though, that this is always evolving. Like there's more and more new data sources every day as iBeacons come, right? Like, do there need to be regulations on where you can put those, right? And then if they're open, because you can have ones that fire constantly, like who has access to which beacons, right? And who's controlling those things?
This is the software we are offering. So.
I didn't mean to plug you on purpose.
Okay, but Martin wanted to say something.
I think there are a couple of things. I mean, seen from a perspective of the beginning of the 20th century, it's really scary to fly in an airplane, 800 kilometers an hour and 300 kilometers an hour towards a runway in fog. For those people, it's scary. Today, it's totally useful, and you're annoyed if they don't fly that fast because we are coming late. Okay, so we are obviously going there. But there is also something about limits. Today we would be able to build cars with 1,000 horsepower and more, driving more than 300 kilometers an hour, and industry started limiting themselves, and regulation came in where you can actually drive them or not. So I think a society has to decide about boundaries. The question is when you start. Would you start with Ford Tin Lizzie and say, if it doesn't have an airbag and all that, you shouldn't have a car? Probably they had the same discussion at that time coming up with cars. You know, people are not educated, terrible things happening with those cars. I mean, they didn't have any safety features. So the question is timing of regulation, I think, is an important point. There might be certain regulations we have to look at. Timing might be one. Now, concerning the machines, I don't think people are afraid about the machines knowing things. It's more people having the control over the machines knowing something. If you look at the personal experience of people, they had unencrypted mails on Google Mail server for a long, long time without any problems. The only thing they didn't want to have that the wife was able to see their own emails or SMS. So it's more about people having certain insights than machines having insights.
Well, as I said, she's an expert for artificial intelligence, and she's really asking the question about that the machines know that they are becoming that intelligent that maybe, you know, the kind of control is flying away. That's what she's asking. Interesting, I think so. I'm with you with what you said.
No, I think that's right. If we are losing control, if the society loses control of what's happening there, that's definitely a problem. It's a question how we stop there.
Yeah.
Because certain people, you know, if you use the computing power to cure cancer, nobody will stop that. Nobody will stop. There are so many applications, nobody will dare to stop them because so many people will benefit from it. If we are talking about saving problems in the energy world, because it's not the only risk we have. I mean, there's a risk with our pollution. I mean, there are a couple of ways we can get away from mankind.
But today we're talking about the problems that might come up with big data.
Yeah, that's right. There are problems and we can solve with those of solutions. So they will come. And I think it's important that we set up that we keep it under control. I totally agree to that. But that doesn't mean, okay, we do it right now. That's one thing. We have to think about it, and we have to grow with what the systems can, what we understand might be the consequences of it. And I think that's a difficult part here, that we find the timing about it, that there might be certain regulations, and we have them. Yes, for example, data protection laws are existing, so they are there, and there are limits to certain things. What, for example, that the customer always has to agree to certain
Okay, but to be honest, they are there. But as we just heard on the panel before, the huge companies, they just, you know, they don't really think they have to that they have to reckon them really, because what happens if they break the rules? Basically nothing. At the moment.
Depends. The problem is there that the politics is real national and companies are global. That's the problem with that. It's not generally the problem of having laws and not taking care of. It's a question of that everything has gone to global for know-how reasons and other things, but politics that has been national or even regional, and that's generating in this perspective a difficult task because if a big company, somewhere a global company, does something which doesn't apply to the rules here, but everybody wants it, what can a government do?
So at the end of the day, this discussion was on a couple of other conferences before in the same way, and it always ends in the same thing. So user by convenience. And if data that is used correctly gives them more convenience, they will buy that product. This is the end of the day. And today, we are living in stone age of data. Wait 20 years from now, look at that science that and investigation that IBM is at the moment doing in automatically artificial intelligence and microchips in that space and so on. We are so in stone age at the moment.
Definitely, I'm with you. But I question a bit, you say, if there's a convenience and if they use the data careful, kind of, let's say it that way. There are two ifs. The first is quite easy. The second, I don't know. You said, Noelle, you think that the people become more aware of data and all the data problems and that they are behaving more careful with their data. If I have a look around, I can't see that. I only see people people see a convenience. For example, WhatsApp it's easy to chat with all your friends, and they just they don't want to know what data will be given away by this app or by another app.
So I think when it comes to people being more aware of the data is getting collected, I think it's a couple things. There's a few things that come out in the news in terms of what's been inferred from data. There's a couple grocery or stores, for instance, that can infer that someone's pregnant before they do, or before they tell their family, or before they tell someone because of their changing of their shopping habits over a specific period of time. So I don't know if this, because I've heard a couple of versions of the story. There's one where it was a teenage girl who didn't tell her dad that she was pregnant, and then suddenly she was getting coupons in the mail for,
I always thought that's a hoax.
No, that happened in the U.S. and that. Then the father angrily called, like, why are you sending this to my daughter? Like, what, you got your things wrong. I can't believe, you need to change your list, blah, blah, blah. He found out 2 weeks later his daughter was actually pregnant. And it turned out that they knew that she was pregnant based on her shopping habits before he did. Right? And so when it comes to that, I think those stories scare people. Like, there's a bunch of those things that come out that analytics in general has gone mainstream, which is why I think like people are aware that, one, there's power in data, and two, that this means somebody's looking at it, like someone's looking at your data. So with that, when it comes to people looking at your data, again, like people can start opting out of it, right? Like ad blocker. I have so many more, I personally have a lot more friends who now have ad blocker up, or have resisted the Facebook Messenger app, because and now they know it's different. And, well, one, I don't think it's convenient anymore for them to have a separate app, but they know that, there's a lot of things that somebody is doing something with their data. There's a lot of scares now, like we know they're watching, right? It could be a little bit of a cultural thing, and it's I think separated actually in people's minds. I think they realize a little bit that people can do bad things with data, but it's not necessarily every single app I download. I have to decide whether or not this is convenient enough for me because of the data. I think that connection still hasn't quite happened yet.
Yes.
That connection hasn't happened yet. It's this dissonant. Data exists on me somewhere. If I Google myself, there's been a lot of data that's out there about each and every person versus, I have to decide whether or not every website I go on, every time I log onto a computer, every time I click on a link to go shopping, that is not yet something that people have realized that they need to start having that conscious decision. But I honestly think that will come.
Yeah, and I think the important part there is the question is what is really the benefit. We talked about convenience, which we consider is not a big deal. You mentioned IBM Watson cognitive systems. Now, if that is helping people to have access to medical information, like in Africa and other countries, I mean, the question is what choices do they have? And therefore, I believe we cannot give these decisions only to people, because depending on what the benefits for them have, goods like cure of illness or whatever, they will give the data. I think we have to look what's happening with the data, and that has to be controlled in a certain way. Because, somebody who has a choice whether his cancer will be cured or giving data, I mean, what do you ask him? Are you asking him, you shouldn't give this data, you make the decision about it. So with these systems coming up, helping people above convenience, we have to look what's happening with the data and having control there. That's what the society will demand from governments or whatever. We will have to see what the right version is to do that. But you cannot let it to every person. The next thing is there are so many things you're doing on a day. If you want to decide on the way from here to the airport, every time you give data, whether you want to give it or not, you're probably not making to the airplane, because you have too much time to think of what are the consequences. You cannot expect that from people. So that's the reason why I believe a certain regulation is needed. At the end, what is done with the data and what we allow with algorithm, even if it's possible, and where do we allow it? So maybe we allow it for cure of illness, but we do not allow it for other things like predicting if somebody is pregnant or something like that. And then the decision is insurance policy depending on that. No, right now we have the problem already today, like your financial data. Somebody fought to get all information about him, which is stored in some financial institute, because he didn't get a credit. The question is that right, that he has no right to get the information why the credit was not granted. And I think that are decisions the society has to do. But it's not about the algorithm, it's not about the data itself, it's about the usage and what it means for the people. And I think that has to be controlled. Because the other things you cannot control, because in certain circumstances, nobody will say no.
Great statements. I would nearly say, oh, let's close it with that. No, but really, I'm with you here. But coming back to the single user who's going into the internet and social networks and so on, using apps, whatever, every single app shall tell us what it is doing with the data. Most of the apps and or social networks don't. They just, it's kind of, they say something, but you don't really know if it's first true, and second, what they really do, or if it's on. Do you know what I mean? Like Facebook is telling you, we're deleting all of your personal data after 90 days. You don't really know. And there's no real possibility to have a lookup, or to control that, or to get into it, or if you have the apps, you need to, it's like the Facebook app messenger, or was it WhatsApp said, well, we have new privacy control possibilities, and after 2 weeks or something, it was like, it does not matter if you use these privacy control options or not, because they will still give the data away. What I want to say is, do you think that the users need to get more information to make these controlled decisions, so that they are able to make controlled decisions to say, oh yes, I want to use your app and I want to give you all my data, then you can make new projects?
So I think, so having talked about data science and with a lot of different industries, I don't think, one, a lot of companies aren't collecting the data as well as they want to. And they don't know how to instrument necessarily the data capture, how long to keep it. They're not doing any analytics on it yet. They don't know how it can necessarily affect, what they're going to do with the product or their marketing. And so there's a lot. So I'm just saying that they wouldn't necessarily know upfront, to tell this is what we're going to do with your data, because some of them don't have. A lot of companies don't have a developed data strategy yet. So I don't know necessarily what they would say, or if they would have to put a bunch of legalese of, we think we may do something eventually with it, and I don't think people would necessarily agree to that. To your point earlier about having regulations, I think, all the legalese that's in there in all of our apps, it is too much for people to try to decipher what that is. So if there is something later, or if as a society, we decide we want something straightforward and simple that we agree to, or that we can decide on, that should be there. Maybe that's something that would be in the future.
I'm not talking about just legal solutions right now, or about privacy statements every app needs to have. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about or try to figure out, what do you think? If you think you're a normal user, you don't have the knowledge you have, okay? Yeah. You're a society, and then you see, okay, there are a lot of apps and apps and apps, and you think it's a kind of a black box. You don't really know, but you just say, oh, it's convenient. Well, that's how it works at the moment. Oh, it's convenient, so I use it.
Yeah, but I think.
So you think that's okay?
It's not new. No, it's not new. I mean, why do we have regulation on pollution? Because a single person didn't make decisions in a way whether to use a car or not. He used it for convenience reason as much as he would like to do it. And then we came up with laws saying certain pollution boundaries have to be kept by cars to get CO2 emission down or whatever. I don't think you can give it to a single person to check all, and even if you give him all the information, I mean, how long do we want to train a regular person about what's happening with that? He will look at the benefits and he wants them, and then he will not listen to the rest. I mean, that's like shopping goes. I mean, you see something, you want it, and that's why credit card works. because you don't see the money going away. You see, just takes a credit card and you go in there. That's how generally people. We have to have regulatory bodies to take care of it. And the problem is, again, which nation in the world would be able to have regulatory body to really control that, to have the know-how and the power to do that? That's a different question. But a single person to say, oh, he should read carefully and have all the information about WhatsApp and what he's doing, far too much.
Yes, but I am asking, can you just say, well, that's too much for you, so we will not provide the information, but I think there must be the possibility for someone who wants to know to get known. Of course, it's the decision of everyone, of every single person to say, I don't want to know. But I think at the moment, most people don't want to know because they don't even know what could happen with big data. That, no, it's not that I say big data is bad or that it will not come. It is there anyway, so it happens. It's still, it's there. So
I agree on the transparency, but I do not agree that the single person has to, always make the choice, because we give the responsibility to him. He might be the person, so the transparency should be there, so that everybody can read it. But to say, because I gave the transparency, everything is fine, would be also too easy.
No,
to
of
go.
course.
That would be too easy. But I think, again, the benefit on the other side we talk about is so big that we should look in which areas we want to use it and in which areas we don't want to use it, and that decide as a society in a certain way. Because the discussion, should it be or whatever it is, as I said, benefits are so big, people want it. And if you go there and say, oh, generally you shouldn't do it, they will either start demonstrations for it or whatever, so they get it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what other cultures are trying to do, to avoid technical progress, saying it's bad. And we had that in all times. I mean, starting with the Amish people and going. There always have been societies saying, we stop right here. The Amish people did it with the engines, and other societies did it at other places.
Try to opt out.
I'm really, really sorry, but I thought we have, should we close at 5 o'clock? Yes? No?
To audience questions.
Yeah, then I got your signs right. No, thank you. Yeah, do you have any questions regarding us? I mentioned there's a...
Thanks. Hello. Do you have any experience with like the creepiness factor of smart homes? Because I think responsive homes, at first at least, will be kind of creepy, right? I mean, my wife is freaking out if our house is cracking in the middle of the night when temperature changes and stuff like that. So she will freak out if the light turns on when she enters the room and she hasn't pushed the button herself. And I think like people will be really a bit scared when the house like starts to react to them and they don't really know why and based on what they
That's true, and that's the reason why I said houses have to communicate. If they just tell things, and everybody has audio systems in their house, once they are connected, that's how we do it. We just tell the customer, okay, that's the next thing to happen because it's automatic. I mean, this simple stuff like motion detectors, most people have gotten used to, but the other things you actually do. The customer wants to have the choice whether he switches it on or off, and then you're fine. It's like robotics. Robotics with people together, you have to communicate with the robotics in order to feel comfortable. That's one case, and that's what I said, yes, you have to communicate in both directions.
Herr Noelle möchte. Herr Noelle wants to speak.
Thank you. Me again, sorry. But I'm just putting together, the panel before and that one. And if you I mean, have in mind what we just saw over the last 1.5 years with the Snowden revelations and all this kind of basically tracking, misleading, abusive tracking from state organizations and companies. I mean, what would a representative of the NSA think about this discussion? That we, with enlightenment are now installing trackers on every single room in our houses. And I know because I did it in my home as well. And then I read these forums, and there's a lot of threads about presence detection, you know. So the home automation system wants to know whether, you know, I enter the room or my daughter and so on. And to achieve that, the idea is to tag every person that lives in the house with Bluetooth tags, you know, that you have to wear all the time. Or you can an alternative is to put it on your keys or something like that, or you know, in your clothes. And I'm just asking myself, you know, I don't only see the creepiness factor, you know, to get used to the fact that the light turns on automatically. I'm asking myself whether it's a good idea at all. I mean, as much as I love these technology kind of things, to, I mean, even go into the next level of tracking and create log files where over years you can see when I entered this room and when I go showering and when I'm alone with my wife in the room and these kind of things. Is it really, I mean, especially as we have the other panel and now this one, I'm a little bit, I could say surprised, you know, that this is such an inexistent kind of thing. I would be curious, you know, what you guys think about specifically that. Would the NSA love this discussion?
Yes.
I think one answer is what you said, do we have to wear? No, you don't have, but you're wearing a smartphone. So a lot of this information is already available, combined with your credit card and things, and you use those things, I assume, because of security. You don't want to run too much cash around, and also for convenience. So, and that what I said again, yes, if there's a misuse, through what organization as well, that people want to have under control. And with the NSA, it's about the misuse in general. And even with that, people still see, you know, the behavior hasn't changed that much because they see the benefits. They want to get away of the misuse, but they want to have the benefits. And they go for it, and they forget maybe faster the misuse than we like it that it happens. But, and that's what we have to see. And the next thing is, as I said, there are other applications where nobody would say, no, you shouldn't do that, because there's so much, you know, convenience is the one you're saying, taking away the first. But if you would say certain people do not have access to medical information, medical cure, which you can do with smart algorithm because there are not enough doctors in the world, it will be hard to explain them that we have the nice situation of having the doctors available, but they don't have, but they shouldn't use that system and shouldn't give their data because we believe that's dangerous. That probably cannot work. So, and it's a decision by the person, right? It's a decision, but again, I believe we have to think about how we can take care of this misuse. And even though through governmental, the society is not the government. The society has to decide, and in free countries we have ways to do that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a further more question? Time is running, so I would say one last quick question, and then I would like to come back to the closing statements of you, if there's a question still there around. No? Okay. If I could look back at this panel, I nearly come to the same conclusion than Stefan. If I put it in 3 words, I would say, okay, you are all quite excited, of course, about the possibilities, what's coming up with all the data. And you say, well, the benefits are that high that disadvantages that maybe can pop up have to stand back, and that regulation, yeah, shall come, maybe, but not that much. Or what would you say, your last statement each to this topic we discussed?
I would give him the first place.
No, you have it. Okay. Then Martin.
Yeah, I would repeat. We have to take care of how it's used as a society, but benefits will drive it whether we like it or not. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You go first. Really competitive with you. No, that's fine. No, I agree with my fellow panelists that while there are issues, as you brought up, that the benefits do outweigh what the cons would be, and that ultimately, and I agree that there are regulations that exist already and are coming, but most importantly, the innovations that we're seeing across homes and cities are really what's the most exciting part.
Thank you.
So we are entering a hyper-connected world, whether it's home, smart cities, or advertising, and people will benefit from that. But there will be, it's up to the companies to give them the best convenience, and the best convenience can also be the best data privacy. So that's it. You can't regulate that from the government.
In the best of worlds, it would go that way, but I think we're not. Well, no.
If you're if you're a company doing that, it's your decision to do that. And at the end of the day, look at Apple. Apple is doing it. Google not. So.
Maybe. Well, no, okay, to be honest, I'm a lawyer, so it's my job to see always the dark side. I'm sorry. No, I think, yeah, we had a good discussion, and I say thank you for being here and for leading this discussion together with me, or us, and for all the people in here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.